Hey everybody, welcome to Geeksvana Live. Thank you very much for joining us again this evening. It's been a busy week on the channel, hasn't it? We've also just launched, for anyone who hasn't seen it, our TLDR series, which is the old sort of social media too long, didn't read. And the idea there is it's short news stories or breakdowns of our longer live shows in just a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes maximum, to be able to bring you some of the smaller stories, but also break things down. So we launched our first one this evening. So if you haven't watched it after the show, I said, go back and have a look at that for sure. Tonight, we're talking about drone delivery because it looks like it's coming to central London. An application for a trial has gained the next level of approval from the CAA, which is essentially the airspace change. We all hear so much about the future of autonomous flight. There are many projects that garner a lot of support across the industry and from the public. However, drone delivery is still a concept with a checkered history, shall we say, with major brands drifting in and out of the area with limited success, seemingly more focused on PR than anything else. How many times have we seen Amazon Air or whatever they're calling themselves this month come in and then suddenly lay people off and come back, etc.? There are very few projects specifically that looking at drone delivery as a concept, which have enjoyed much success over the years, really. Obviously, we have other projects like Manor and other bits and pieces, but we will talk about those another time. We see a lot of social media content focusing on a few chicken wings or a coffee being delivered, but there are very few leaps required until we actually see the drone delivery coming up. We don't seem to be making those leaps in terms of things like battery and length of flight and weather and all those kind of good fun things. So we still really need to see drone delivery proving itself also as something which can cut it as a profitable, sustainable business. Now, this is probably somewhere in the middle, the one we're going to talk about tonight, in terms of that, with the application which is named the London Health Bridge. So let's bring in Graham to have a chat about it and run through a few important parts of this. This won't be a long show this evening, but this is an important one to bring news to you all on, especially in terms of discussing how this will impact other people, because this won't be the last airspace change that we see of this type. So let's have a drum roll before we see Graham's shirt. And here he is. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm wearing the summary dessert.
It's a return. It's an official
return.
return.
A return, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
You're looking.
There is a limit to the number of shirts I've got.
Well,
we found it.
Yes, the wardrobe department's limit has been found.
And what you were saying about, we've had the sort of serious attempts at delivery, or we assume they were serious attempts. I think I've also had a couple of clients from my OSC days who have been involved in those sort of PR pizza and ice cream delivery things that end up on the news, but that was years ago, and that captured people's imaginations at the time.
It did.
But you've got to make money,
and you do have to make money, but you also have to find use cases as well. And one thing I do like about it's called the London Health Bridge because it is taking samples and that kind of thing. So I suppose there is an issue, there is a purpose that it seems to be solving. But we'll come on to what they're actually doing in just a few minutes. First of all, I want to talk about very quickly about actually the regulation behind it as such. And this is something which anybody's interested in this should download and read CAP 1616. We like a good CAP document, don't we, Graham?
We do it,
which is actually the airspace change process. And this is the kind of future flights application policy that you're going to have to follow to be able to do this kind of thing, which of course you're not just, as we were talking earlier in the week about a type of BVLOS drone flight where you're not actually having to change the airspace. On this one, you actually are. So CAP 1616 is the guidance notes in terms of the many hoops that people have to jump through to be able to get this. And this really is, when people talk about, oh, this is just, large scale companies with lots of money, this is it. This really is the large scale companies with lots of money and lots of backing and lots of staff and lots of hours of flying their drones all over the world, etc. All of those factors will definitely be in there as far as being able to gain permission to fly here, basically. So it's a big factor.
And of course, the other thing is that they're impacted not just by the airspace regulations, but by the medical regulations. So I know they've done trial flights to to prove the efficacy of the method. So, you know, they've had to fly stuff to make sure that it's not impacted adversely by the flight process.
Yes.
And if you think of temperature, high frequency vibrations, you know, the sorts of things that may impact a drone that are different to a motorbike or another road vehicle that they're used to carrying blood products in.
That's it, exactly. And this is slightly different because this isn't just another trial. You know, this is going to be a regular service. This is going to be an ongoing service that they're looking to build on, if anything. So they are changing the airspace, but they're also this isn't something which is going to have segregated airspace. It's going to have to work with everybody in and around them, which we will come on to. But looking at the actual airspace approval process in terms of how these people have come through Apian. It's Apian Limited, and on behalf of Wing, it doesn't actually say that in here, but we all know it's Wing. We all know it's Wing, don't we, Graham?
We know it's Wing.
And you know, this is really is to look at the documentation here in terms of the listing, in terms of the steps that they've gone through to gain the approval to this point is absolutely incredible, especially when you bear in mind the next two parts, which is implement and implement extension, which sounds rather preemptively scary, doesn't it? Really,
it does.
Those two haven't even been filled out yet, but we are now at the decision gateway, decide gateway. Okay. And as it states here, the current status is in progress, but on the last one, the 30th of August 2024, the CAA has completed the Decide Gateway assessment and is satisfied that the change sponsor has met the requirements of the airspace change process. The CAA approves the implementation of this airspace change proposal for the reasons and that are set out in the statements and obviously, of course, the application as well. Following the publication of the revised CAP 1616 airspace change process, the UK Civil Aviation Authority has published the revised requirements and guidance for temporary and trial airspace change proposals, which is CAP 1616G. This ACP will continue to follow the process requirements as set out in version 4. So they have themselves an airspace change proposal. Now, you may think, okay, so how's this going to work? And when I say the area where they're going to be flying will have what's called a temporary reserved area, you think, oh, that sounds like, you know, restrictions, doesn't it, basically? But in actual fact, a temporary reserved area is for general aviation. It's for manned aviation. It's for the airspace going upwards rather than us down on the ground. So as far as we understand it, this again, similar to the process that we were talking about earlier in the week, would have no impact whatsoever on the open category, because again, they will have their mitigations in place. They'll have all the bits and pieces in place, etc., for these things to fly. Now, again, I don't know whether or not there's going to be NOTAMs for this kind of, this one of the last things I actually didn't check. Actually, I'm not sure whether this would be operated under NOTAM in terms of a warning, but it would be difficult to do because obviously otherwise they'd have to know the exact, you know, hours of flying and that type of thing, I suppose. But this should have no direct impact to the open category. So if you are in that area, and you can, because obviously as we're about to show you in terms of where it is, if you are flying in the area legally, good luck for a start. But secondly, they've kind of chosen an area in London, but it's one that obviously isn't necessarily going to be getting a lot of airspace traffic at the moment, is it, basically? So it sounds more dramatic.
And I'm hoping it's one that's got a couple of hospitals.
Yes. Well, there you go. Yes. And in fact, this document, which I'll zoom in on the top one very quickly as well, shows the area that it's going to be, obviously from Guy's Hospital across to St Thomas Hospital. Now, this isn't a very, you know, this again obviously is something which is proving a process. This isn't suddenly going to take X numbers of, you know, vehicles off the UK roads or anything, is it? This isn't going to, you know, change things much basically in terms of carbon footprint or anything else like that. So this is another trial. So the route itself will depart from Guy's Hospital and deliver to St Thomas and of course return to Guy's Hospital again. The height will be surface level to 450 feet, which is why they're having this temporary reserved area, which will impact general aviation, of course, because they're getting into that mixed area where they have some kind of area there from that point of view. And it will be operating Monday to Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 p.m, daylight hours only. So I suppose actually it won't even go as late as 5 o'clock soon, will it, here in the UK with our diminishing daylight?
We haven't discussed this, but will there be a prize for the first person who sends in a photo of it?
Yes. If you can, and if you can verify through the tags on that photo that it is a Wing branded drone, which will look something like this. If you can verify that and send that through, the first person that comes through to Sean at geeksvana.com will get a prize. I'm happy to say that.
Yeah. And don't just take a clip of their website. We want to see London buildings in the foreground, please.
I'm looking forward to, actually have some geotagging in the metadata as well, please, which you can turn on your phone. I'm looking forward to seeing some AI and some really bad, obviously comedic versions being sent through as well.
Joining some minis together.
So in terms of the frequency, it'll be approximately 10 return flights per day. And the duration of operations will be 6 months, start dates as per stakeholder engagement, because, of course, they're talking to lots of stakeholders, including emergency services and military and all the other types of people that would need to be able to fly through there, and airspace service providers, etc., ANSPs, etc.
And there's the answer to the question, NOTAM.
There we go. NOTAM at minimum of 24 hours in advance. So we will know it's happening. We will know there's an activation, and the warning will be out there, which is good. But obviously, you don't have a set restriction in terms of us flying or hobbyists flying. And I suppose, obviously, we won't even talk about specific category flights, because there'll be a whole other list of things that you have to check and verify, etc. as well. Because if Graham's there, he might be using his 1,000 for OSC, which would, you should go and put a flight right in the middle of one of those little areas, Graham, and put a NOTAM up and see what happens. Yes, but it's a really interesting type of flight, because I do think that, when you look at the areas as well, and you look at it from the drone safety map, the drone restrictions map, it's obviously in an area where there probably isn't too much manned aviation flying at 450 feet or even, because obviously you do have the limits in terms of congested areas, even for manned aviation. Now, there is obviously heli routes and things that are close by, and emergency services will need to cut across. But it seems like, although on the surface it seems almost controversial, it's not a bad place for it, is it?
No, I mean, you do often get police helicopters hovering around, even Chinooks and the like, but they'll know about it.
They will, exactly.
They'll be aware. They can avoid it. Look, it's quite a narrow area. They can fly either side of it and almost certainly do what they want to do or see what they want to see. So
yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's it is one of those things that I think, if and when this all happens and it happens successfully, to have this many flights happening, 10 return flights a day over central London, of course, all without issue, of course, over a 6-month period, again, is more data, and it's more data feeding into the machine, feeding into the animal that is the airspace and the airspace regulator. I'm not calling the CAA animals, by the way. That was descriptive only.
I'm glad that came from your mouth.
Yeah, right. Indeed. Graham wrote that bit of the script, honest. But yeah, so it's more data, it's more information going back in. We have the BVLOS AAE that we were talking about earlier in the week, this kind of thing happening. These are flights that are perhaps now stepping out of the future flight into the existing flight side of things. Now, this isn't going to be changing the world. This isn't going to be changing much in terms of it itself. It's possibly quicker to have a van meet you outside, guys, or a bike, especially in London, and have that bike zip across, because you don't have to, get in a lift, go up the lift, give the sample, sign it over securely to the drone operating company, actually have that company secure the sample correctly, take it up onto the roof, load it into whatever box they're using that they've worked out is secure, get it on the drone, check everything's okay, ensure the airspace is clear, then take off. And of course, the motorbike's already on its way back by this point. So this isn't at the moment necessarily going to be doing anything like that. But of course, it is going to be actually actually handling things like medical samples,
Mm.
etc. So it is doing something, and
And
therefore it's proving things.
and if you extend that, to another hospital where you've got to cross the river, then all of a sudden that motorbike potentially slows down, becomes slower,
Yeah.
and so you can see a point at which there's a sort of break even. It's worth doing, and certainly, much longer journeys are going to be well worth it.
Exactly. And in terms of the type of thing, so the type of drone that you think that we believe will be, this is shown in some of the documents. They are fairly careful not to show too much about who they're applying on behalf of, because of course it was APN Limited putting the application forward, but the wing drone was in there. And it's one of these. Now, although these look substantive and even potentially a little bit scary, because they do look a little bit, don't they? These aren't actually that big. There should be, if there's some of the video or pictures here somewhere, showing them up against somebody actually handling one. They're mainly foam. And they're actually very lightweight. Obviously, they have lots of redundancy in terms of all of those props on there, and we know they can land on Australian power lines as well.
They can, yes, yes. 1.5 meter wingspan.
Yeah. Yes, here are the specs. Yeah, 4.3 length feet, 4.9 foot wingspan. The weight is 11 pounds. This particular one, 2.5 pound package weight. Again, we don't know if there's going to be slight adaptation in terms of the drone that is used for this or not. I wouldn't have thought so too much. 65 miles an hour speed sounds about right to be able to do that kind of round distance. And this one has a round distance of up to 12 miles. So again, it seems to fit, doesn't it?
And looking at that weight, so 6.6 kilo laden.
Yeah.
So that's what an M200.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to have that coming down and gliding down at me than an M200 coming down vertically on my head.
Yes, because it's all about the frangible nature, etc., isn't it? From that
rake.
From that point of view. So these things do break apart as they come into impact with things. They are designed to do that. I'm not saying they won't hurt if they drop on you from a very high distance, but yeah, they are designed for the environment that they're going to be flying in. Basically, it's a fascinating platform. It's coming, so it's kind of one that we kind of almost have to once 1616 was in place and was out there, you were always going to get these large companies to really throw the gauntlet down. One of the things I think is going to be interesting is, because of the temporary reserved area, we're perhaps for one of the first times going to have the manned, the general aviation side of things having to take more notice of drones. Whereas most restrictions, most drone operations, etc., the ones we were talking about earlier in the week with the BV loss was, of course, 50 feet was the example given in terms of how far in terms of distance from buildings. But this one, of course, is very much going above that 400 magic height at the 450, and is not going to have much separation from other aircraft. So hence there is a temporary reserved area in place that general aviation, manned aviation will have to follow. So it's kind of one of the first times that we're mixing it up with them a bit more, isn't it?
It is. I mean, just looking at it, seeing how close it is to Tower Bridge, I can imagine there's going to be a real clash with the mini pilots getting their pictures.
Is it that close?
Well, no.
Let me have a look. I mean, it
is on the map.
There would be some
just off to the east.
Oh yes, yeah. No, I could see what you mean. Actually, yeah. It isn't within the realms. If someone's brave and decides to go BV loss and gets a bit braver and suddenly says, "Do you know what? I've got the bridge. I'm feeling confident. I'm going to head out over Bermondsey, etc." Then yes, they could well. They could well come a cropper, I believe is the phrase. But yeah, so it's an interesting one, and it's this is obviously, there's always that thought process of, is this an appropriate place to do this? Can't they test this, perhaps in Oxford or somewhere, or between two remote hospitals, or a hospital and another building, etc. And we've kind of done that a lot already, haven't we? From that point of view, and I suppose it's time it does move into this kind of area.
Yeah, and I guess we've got to support it from the point of view of if this is never done, then we'll never do it.
Yes.
And if we never do it, we can never have confidence that drones can be safe. We've got to take the step at some point. So
do we?
and
Yes, no, we do. Yes,
yeah.
sorry, yes, you're right.
And to be fair, I mean, flying in London, there's more buildings than thoroughfares in a lot of cases. So it'll end up hitting a building and sliding down.
I mean, if it flew the amount of flights it did in Australia and ended up on power lines, I'm sure there's going to. Well, I'm not sure. I would not be surprised if there is a headline with a wing drone sort of sticking out the top of a London bus at some point.
Or a crane.
Yeah, because there's so many cameras and so many people with phones. Whatever happens is going to be picked up on so many times, isn't it?
Captured. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible from that point of view, but it is coming now. Again, I do not think this is much more than a PR stunt in terms of a company being able to say we now do drone deliveries. There is no benefit to Wing in terms of financial or economic side of things. There's obviously benefit in terms of building their drone delivery brand and testing their drone delivery brand, putting yet more hours under their wings. But this is as well a PR thing, because if you get an advert saying, "Hey, we're doing drone delivery across central London," to me, central London, New York are the kind of cities that, to me, are probably the holy grail of drone delivery in terms of being able
it's iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, to be able to say we fly over those. There's cities, there's capital cities that the world recognise, and that advert would play as well as it does in the UK as it would in the US or anywhere in the world. Really, people will know where that is basically. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one from that point of view. So hopping across and looking at some of the comments.
Dare we?
Say what, Drone, one of our channel members. Thank you for being a channel member. I wonder if they can be interfered with whilst in the air. Can they be hijacked? I suppose they can be interfered with in as much as they can. And it's interesting because this always comes up with delivery drones, but these are aircraft, of course. Although actually they're small drones, but they're not. I believe these will be the type of drones that are under, because these are not certified category drones. These will still be technically flying
specific category,
under specific category, but they will probably get the aircraft. Will these be Article 240 protected? I'm sure someone will come after you if you take action against them.
They are a UAS.
Yeah,
they're a UAS.
Although it's SUAS, isn't it? It's small UAS. No.
UAS. It's UAS is unmanned aircraft system. That's what it is, and 240 doesn't apply.
Article 23, isn't it?
Article 23 plucks it out.
And that's not bad, is it? If we can name the article as we're talking about it, isn't bad, is it? That's when it's not Article 23 though. So this order applies or in relation to aircraft which applies. I thought did it used to say small drones, or have they changed that?
No, it's UAS. That's it. You dreamt it. Oh, well, you didn't dream it. You remembered it.
Yeah. I suppose any small balloon, any kite, it is any unmanned aircraft other than unmanned aircraft subject to certification. So if this does fly in the specific category and not the certified category, which it can't because the certified category doesn't exist, then yes, it will still, of course, be a crime. On so many other levels. So I'm not sure I can quite believe where we're doing, but it comes up a lot, doesn't it, in terms of that. All About Drones is saying, shame they had the chance to test this kind of thing at Morecambe Bay and missed that. Yeah, I mean, this is this, and especially I would say, could Morecambe Bay have been an atypical airspace environment, an AAE? Could that have actually?
I think as we look at it, and as a certain individual we know looks at it, you'd say yes. I think as the AAE looks at it, you'd say, where is the structure? Where is the thing that's stopping general aviation going and having a play?
Yeah. Although there's a lot of data there, isn't there? That is, I suppose it's not missed because it was done on the record, so the data's there. Just not proven under policy, which is a shame. Jonathan Webb, what do you think of the DJI fly carts being used for deliveries in Chinese cities? I think it's very brave.
But when you have that sort of governmental system, You can be very brave, can't you?
You can. I'm not sure at the moment that depend, being used in cities. I'm not sure that's exactly where I'd like to see that particular. I'm not sure we're there yet. It's a bit like when I see the VTOL EHang air taxis being tested, and I saw them put a little girl in one of them, and I thought, whose little
Yeah.
girl is that?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
I think it's probably very brave. I think they're probably jumping ahead from the point of view of wanting to prove the data come what may, and that perhaps, as Graham was hinting at, might come from a different governmental approach to different things. Michaela said something actually that caught my eye here, which is welcome to the dystopian future of the UK. Back to worrying about what things will be raining down on you, like the good old Tudor times.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing, isn't it? I mean, talking about hijacking, why the only people who would want to hijack this are vampires?
Yes. So that's a rather yes, macabre point to make
Yeah.
there, actually. But yes, Sean, how much would you pay Graham so he can pay for his shirts? Well, yes. Well, the shirt budget is absolutely astronomical. I will have
Huge,
you know,
isn't it?
and
It's huge.
yes, exactly. There is constant disagreements and battles over the shirt budget. I'm confused as to this is for emergency and urgent delivery. How will they know 24 hours in advance of activations? So this is basically not actually for emergencies and things, and urgent, it could be for urgent care, but it's for taking samples. So they know a certain amount of samples have to go from St Guy's to Thomas Hospital, which is where Thomas Hospital is where so much of it is processed. Obviously, building one large processing lab is a good idea over two major hospitals, or even more than that, in fact. So it's kind of like they know. It's a bit like saying, do we know that Domino's will have pizzas to deliver tomorrow? You kind of it happens every single day, so it's going to happen. So those samples will be there to that will require to be taken. I would have thought there'll be a lot more samples going via road still, even during this process. So again, I would have, and I would have thought that there will be a hierarchy in terms of choosing which ones go in there and that type of thing. So as well.
I did see a question on here. That's it. On track images, drone delivery allowed to fly over crowds, I'm guessing. And we had this little discussion before the show, didn't we?
We did. I'll let you talk about it for a second while I find that.
Yeah, it's specific category. I'm without reading through all those documents and without reading the operational authorization, I can't say whether it's allowed to overfly crowds or not. The CAA have said in the past that specific category can't legally fly over crowds. I'm not sure about that because I read differently, but we believe they have mitigations in place.
Yes, there is, in my opinion, you're probably going to find some of the answers to this are unique because of the company that's actually putting the application forward. So for instance, if I decided to go into drone delivery, which everybody should be very scared if I did that. But if I decided to do that, and I brought Graham on, and we decided that we're going to do, drone delivery flights between two hospitals, we know the regs, we'll be fine, and we'll get someone clever like Tilt Angle Drones to build us the drones and everything else like that. We'll get Chris Crockford to be our operations manager. We've got a really good company there, but of course we've got 0 hours proven. Whereas someone like Wing has many, many hours. The only thing about all of these little trials they've done all over the world is they've built up a lot of hours
built up data
with this aircraft, and that is in itself, that in itself is a mitigation. That in itself is supports their risk assessment from the point of view that they haven't had too many things apart from Australian Power Lines go wrong. And the fact that I can only make a joke about one of their things going wrong is really showing actually how many successful flights that they have managed to complete. So it's not bad.
No, and yeah, and we often see in groups, we see it when police are allowed to fly beyond visual line of sight in certain circumstances. When something like this happens, people who say, well, why can't I fly my drone beyond visual line of sight like this? Well, you saw the list of documents, get those together, convince the CAA that your Mini will be perfectly safe, and off you go.
Yeah,
You know, it's
good luck with
easy.
that, because
Deep
yes,
pockets. You'll need
deep
pockets,
pockets,
but
because I can.
these guys, these guys aren't just saying let's stand on this roof and fly it to another roof. They're
Yes.
going through the
Yes,
processes.
the air change proposal here, in terms of the documents, and in terms of, each one of these documents is a huge amount of work. And in terms of, actually proving this and going through the different levels of documentation, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, frankly.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's correct, it is a fact. It is something which is, beyond the scope of most companies, beyond the scope of most corporations. And this is something that I wonder if there are many other companies at all in the world that could have got this. Now, that doesn't sit nicely in terms of a society and, a level playing field side of things.
Competitive. Yeah.
But it is the same as any industry, really. Those that are at the absolute cutting edge are the ones that are going to get. Ironically, it's rare that you find the early cutting edge companies are the ones that
That make it.
succeed.
Yeah.
Although you have to say, with Wing, the fact that they are Google is probably means they're
Probably helpful.
they might well buck that trend, shall we say?
Yeah. But what they do is lower the cost for everybody else by essentially increasing, we hope, increasing the confidence, and that should over time make it easier for other entrants.
Yes, and hence this.
But they've got to. But those other entrants have to catch up. So the advantage is you're first. The disadvantage is it's expensive to be first.
Exactly, and of course, it's one of those things where all of these hours, all of this stuff gets put in there, does get put in the hat. It does start to prove things, and then we start seeing lots of Wing-esque looking drones being designed left, right, and centre, just outside of patents and just outside of different copyrights, etc. And yes, we start seeing lots of similar applications,
and similar documents being drawn up, and
then we get towards the CAA's 2027 vision of drones. What was it? Flying regularly across society. Which again, I'm not sure what the society word actually means, but in this context, but but it's I'm not picking on them either, of course. I never do that. So there we go. So that is, in a nutshell, this particular drone delivery trial, I suppose, which is going ahead, which is certainly now moving forward to the implementation stage. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and of course, we will let everybody know what it does. If you do get a photo of these when they do start flying, which isn't for a little while yet, then yes, the first person that forwards that to us will get a special prize of some type. I might even try and convince Graham to give one of his shirts.
Oh, but which one?
Good luck.
And it's great. There's 2 sessions this week where we're talking about real now happening BV loss.
Yeah.
The hobby is left largely unimpacted by it.
Yes. Although my caveat to that is, for instance, with the typical airspace environment, yes, the hobby is left alone from that point of view. But what happens at scale? So what happens when there is a BV loss an automated BV loss drone flying up and down every single railway line and flying from the roofs of police stations to go and see what's happening when crimes are reported, and all of this? When this becomes scale, what happens then? So at the moment, it's great news, but I do have concerns about the future. As Tazzy just said, almost perfectly, ... at the moment.
Yeah, they'll all be bored with the hobby by then.
They'll all be what, sorry?
Bored with the hobby.
The hobby will probably be very different. My prediction a few years ago of our drones will one day be our mobile phones that we take out of our pocket. It takes off. The drone already knows the regs and everything else like that. We draw on the screen what picture or what video we want, and it goes and does it itself, basically under AI control, and you don't control them. That's what I think the drone hobby in quite a few years will be, personally.
That's the Neo, isn't it?
No. The Neo is definitely a step towards that, certainly, and these selfie drones are starting to move in that kind of direction. But I think the automation, and it was there in the CAA's consultation as well, wasn't it? They talked about the drone knowing the rules, and the maps, etc., being uploaded, and the drone knowing if the pilot has got the competency to be flying in that area and that type of thing. So we're already making steps towards it, in my opinion. I think that's probably where it will go. show but that's many years in the future, and perhaps by then we'll all have, I don't know, flying cars to play with or something. So perhaps we'll be happy. We'll all be the Geeksvana will be the flying car hobby channel.
But I'll have cataracts and won't be allowed to fly them.
Yes, exactly. Okay, excellent. Well, that's it for this evening. Thank you very much. Again, go and watch the TLDR. It's a series that I would really like to see succeed. The one tonight is on the Boston drone crash. We've got another couple coming tomorrow, including some actually explaining this show and the show earlier in the week in literally, one of them is 1.5 minutes. So do try and support them. But they don't get much watch time, so it's good if people do go and watch them. It does help us. Hit the like button before you leave, and I'll say Sean out and leave the final words to Graham. He's prepared tonight, I've been told.
I will say, I scream, you scream, we all scream for the continuation of well thought through airspace policy leading to safely shared skies. Thank you. You did ask.
You said you prepared. Thanks,
I
everyone.
prepared. I didn't rehearse.
No. Bye-bye. We're not putting you in charge of the lyrics.